Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Cold Hard Sports Talk with your hosts, Matty B and Woodsy.
All right, time for our interview today, and we're joined by a guy who's played in a lot of different markets, played in the SJHL, WHL, AHL, ECHL for a bit, the NHL as well, played in Austria, Finland, Russia, and Sweden as well. He's been all over the place. This is Shaun Heshka. Shaun, how's it going, man?
Great, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is awesome to have you. Looking at your elite prospects, there's a lot that we can get into. But the first thing that I kind of wanted to talk about was your time with the Tisdale Trojans back in 2001, 2002. And for those of our listeners who don't know, that's the Air Canada Cup championship team, the national champions that year. Just, Shaun, first off, how cool was that team and what was so special about that group?
Yeah, it seems like a really long time ago. I know we're coming up on almost 20 years of the championship there, so it was a great run for me. It was my first time away from home, and a couple of my buddies from Melville said they were going to go over there, and we're going to kind of go as a group. So for me to go over there and have some friends there right away, and they had some contacts there with like Miles Zimmer and Rolly and those guys. So felt real comfortable going in there, and we had a pretty good group of guys that we played with, and Tisdale guys, and they had the guys that they had played with for a while, and we knew that was kind of something special right away when we got together as a group and saw the skill that we had.
And that team, if for those who don't know, that's the same year that a guy by the name of Sidney Crosby was playing for the Dartmouth Subways as this kid who was coming up through the ranks, and everyone was excited about him. You guys played him a couple of different times. Do you remember much about playing against Sid?
Yeah, I remember playing. There was a big hype about this kid, and he was so much younger than we were, and he's such a big prospect for them, and for us, we were all like small town farm kids, and for us just going and being a part of the tournament was a big deal, and we always like to represent in Saskatchewan how we play the game, and we play the game in a tough edge, and we went in those games kind of not sure what to think of this guy, but we knew we were going to make it hard for him to play against us, and I think we went into that whole tournament the same way, where we were just going to go out there and play our game and play that hard edge game. And, we found success with it. And I don't think any of us thought that we were up to the caliber of being able to win the whole thing. But, we started winning a few games in the tournament, and we were like, hey, you know what, we are good enough to beat all these teams. So, and we faced Sydney there, and I think Manor went and talked to Strax, Tyson Strack, and my roommate in Tisdale, and he just said, hey, like, make sure this guy doesn't score, and make sure he's got a hard time touching the puck. And I think Strax had a great time, getting some recognition for doing that.
And just like winning that tournament, how cool was it? Do you remember much about the buzzer going off and winning that tournament?
Yeah, it was really shocking. For everyone, the players and the coaching staff and the town of Tisdale and the parents, like we had everyone's parents were there, and they were having a great time. They brought the horn from Tisdale, and so it was just a different time, and we didn't really think about it as such a big thing, but now when you look back at it, it was a real big thing for us in the community, and a lot of guys picture that as their peak of their career. So, we had a fun time, and it was hard to get out of the Saskatchewan League, to be honest with you. There's a lot of great teams and a lot of hard games played there.
Yeah. Then the next season, you decide to go play for your hometown Melville Millionaires. What was the decision to actually start with the junior A route as a young kid, rather than maybe go back to AAA for another year? What was kind of your decision process there?
I was trying to get into the Western League. I was listed with Swift Current, and I've been trying to get up at Swift Current for a long time, and I stayed with them after that year for a little while and started there. But Didn't work out again. And realistically, I just wanted to play at home and get my grade 12 in. And it was important for me to finish school the right way. And I felt like going home and doing that for me was the best call. So, plus I figured in mid to AAA, there wasn't anything I was like, I had done everything I could do basically in that league. And, I thought I'd try the SJ out and played home for a year.
And then you do manage to get your chance in the WHL. You play 3 seasons with the Everett Silvertips. You have a couple long playoff runs there too. Just tell us about your time in Everett and what playing there was like.
Yeah, it started off kind of rocky. I went to camp there, and just being I was kind of hoodwinked by the Swift Current guys, and just kind of had a bad attitude about the whole thing. And I had a lot of people telling me, hey, you should go U.S. college way, U.S. college. But I, growing up in Saskatchewan, like a lot of players just played in the Western League, and all my friends played in the Western League, and didn't know much about U.S. college. So I went to the Silvertip camp and talked to the coaches after, and they said, hey, we want to take you to Everett and give you a shot or whatever. And so I went in there and said, hey, unless you guarantee me a spot, I'm not going to blow my eligibility in my college career. And they said, well, we're not giving anybody, we're not telling anyone they have a spot on this team yet. So if you want to come, you come, and if you don't, well, go home. So I actually went home for a while, and my parents talked to me after, I don't know, it was a week or two after, and they said, hey, we think you're making a big mistake here. So I actually called Kevin Constantine as a coach there, and Doug Sotart, the GM, and said, hey, I think I made a mistake. I'd like to come back. And they basically said, well, you're going to start at the bottom of the list and work your way up if you want to come back, but we'll have you back. So, yeah, I flew over to Everett, which for me, I landed in Seattle, and I thought, this is the biggest city I've ever seen, right? And it kind of took off from there. As soon as I got in the lineup, it took me a little while, but I felt like they really respected my game right away, and kind of, we had this magical season in the Everett expansion year with all these kind of guys that were kind of passed over, which I fit in really well with, because I felt like I was one of those guys that was kind of passed over. So, we had this kind of crazy season that ended up getting to the final, and really got that fan base going there. And I felt very lucky to be a part of that.
And you play a couple more seasons there. The big season for you was your final season that ended up being the WHL. Led the league in assists and was a first All-Star in the West there. Just how, what was the difference that season, being able to take that next step in your dub career?
Yeah, I think that just confidence-wise, my 19-year-old year, I remember my first year, and Kevin coming up to me and saying, hey, how come you're never in the power play meetings? And I said, well, I'll never play in the power play. And I was a penalty killing guy and just kind of a good first pass guy. And he's just like, well, you're never going to play on the power play if you never go to the meetings. So I said, okay, I should probably go and sit in the few meetings. So I sat in the meetings for the rest of the year. And then the next year, sure enough, I was on the power play, and I was playing a much bigger role, and just getting that confidence of a coach that he felt like you could contribute a lot. And I felt like my 19-year-old year was a big step for me. And then after that, I stayed in Everett over the summer and trained there. And I felt like I got a lot stronger just training and taking it more of, I'm going to be one of the men in the league here. It's a big difference from 20 to 16 in that league. So took a big step forward, I think, training wise.
And Shaun, after your dub, you were saying you were going to Calgary Flames camp. Just maybe what was camp like? Just going to your first pro camp or your first NHL camp there. What was kind of the experience like being, at a camp?
Yeah, I think for me, going into camp was a big eye-opening experience. I got to see the big guys there were Ginla and Kiprasov and those guys there, and Phaneuf was my age, so got to kind of see the older guys and the younger guys that were coming in, and the kind of respect level that Iginla was there, and getting on the ice with some of those guys was like, holy man, this is the real deal, and we're getting close to where we want to be here. So, but you also see how far you are from that point as well. So, going there, it brought a little bit of humbleness to me. I think in the Western League, you get a little bit of that swagger where you're one of the top dogs in the league, and you think you're one of the top players in hockey, and all of a sudden you go up to that level and you're small fries again. So I got to see those guys, which was really cool, and see Ginla was showing us the fitness testing and all that stuff, and he's the number one guy on all the tests, so you kind of sets the bar pretty high for you, and it was a great experience for me to get my first camp.
What was like Jerome, was he as nice as everybody says he is?
Yeah, he's always smiling, and he's really nice, and but he's just super good shape and very, very good hockey player.
And you managed to spend a little bit of time after that with the Manitoba Moose in the AHL. Was there a point in those couple of seasons where you were like, okay, I'm close, like I'm almost at that goal of playing in the NHL?
Yeah, so I spent my last year in the Western League, my 20-year-old year, and then kind of was figuring out I was gonna go play in university. I was actually gonna go University of Saskatchewan, and was kind of talking to a bunch of schools that were calling me. I was going to go on the there used to be a TV show, I forget what it's called, Making the Cut or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so they called me too, and they said, hey, like, we want you to be on the show and all this stuff, and I was like, all right, like I'll do that too. And then my agent actually called me and said, hey, we got some offers here, and it ended up being Toronto and Vancouver going back and forth, and eventually Vancouver gave me a better deal, so I signed that one. And I had to call the TV show and say, yeah, I was getting a deal, and they were saying, oh no, that's what the whole point and all that stuff. So by signing Vancouver, I got to get to Manitoba, and that again was another eye-opening experience where you're coming in as I was 21, and like our captain Mike Keane was 39, so you're coming in as a boy, and you're playing against men, and it's a different game, and it takes time to adapt to that as well.
What was like playing in Winnipeg, because that was kind of before the Jets had started making noise there, right?
Yeah, so the Jets were there before, and then they left, and then the Moose were the big dogs in town, and so for me it was a big step up. Like the rink was a top facility in the league, and it was a big step up from the Western League, and we had these old guys that were such experience in the NHL and all these other things, so you're kind of sitting there and saying, holy smokes, like what am I doing here? And it's very much so it's a professional league, and you don't joke around, and when you're, especially back in the day, when you're there to work. So I learned very quick that I had to come every day and prepare and make sure that I was on my A game. I remember one practice, as normal, I wasn't practicing very well, and my passes weren't too great. And I think Mike was coming around the blue line, and I ripped a pass, and I totally missed him. And he stopped right in the middle of the whole drill and stopped the whole practice and went and looked at me and said, hey kid, if you ever miss a practice with me the rest of the year, you're fucking out of here. And I said, all right, sir, Mr. Keane, sir. So every practice after, I was ripping passes right on his tape, and it really, it honestly made me a better player, and I honestly think I am a better passer because of it. So I talk to Mike in the summers now, and I always tell people that story, and he doesn't remember it at all, but I do. So.
Wow. And after your time in Manitoba, you finally make 2009, 2010 NHL, the Phoenix Coyotes. Do you remember your first NHL game?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. You play a long time, and you never really think it's going to come. And then we're on the bus. I was playing in San Antonio, and we're on the bus on the road or whatever, and got called up to the front. And I was like, oh shit! Like the coaches are they're gonna break down some video or something, and I made some mistake in the game, and was kind of, so I hit up there, and Ray Edwards was our coach, and he sat me down and said, "Hey, like you're going up." And I said, "What do you mean up where? You know, what do you mean? What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, you're going up. Like Bill Benoski got hurt, and they need a guy." And I said, "Okay, like what do I do?" And he's like, "Well, you're playing. You got to get on a plane, and you're playing tomorrow against. You're going to Anaheim. And you're playing the Ducks." And I said, "Like I'm actually going to play, or am I just going up there to like sit on the stands?" He's like, "No, you're supposed to be playing." I was like, "Oh, okay, well, something, right?" So yeah, I remember the game. I remember getting there, and you get to the rink, and it's pretty surreal, right? Like it's like another step above where you're at again, and meeting the guys and stuff was great, and you're just kind of trying to fit in as much as you can, and you get pretty nervous, and warm-ups was pretty crazy for me. I got to look over there and you see Solani and these guys like Getzlav and all these guys that were over there, and I'm sitting there saying, "Oh man, like I'm a little in over my head here, I think." And I don't think it happened such a quick time that I didn't really mentally prepare for what was going to happen. So basically the whole time I was just trying not to make any mistakes and make a fool out of myself. So it was fun, and it was definitely an experience I'll never forget.
Was that in that time in Phoenix? Was that when Gretzky was still the coach there?
No, our coach was Dave Tippett.
Oh, okay. And how was he as a coach? Because obviously he's still in the league now. He's making, he's coaching at a very high level still. How was he as a coach?
Yeah, he was great. I thought he was a really good coach for the short time I was there, for like 3 weeks, and he's very approachable, and he's one of those. I've always found that coaches it's a hard job because especially nowadays with young guys, you have to find that level where you have the respect of players, yet at the same time, like it only benefits you to be approachable and being able to like get guys talking and get guys' emotions out. So I felt like he had that good area where it was like, all right, you can go talk to him. He's a good guy, but at the same time, when he speaks, he has that respect, and that knowledge that you kind of really soak in. So I thought he was great, and I've talked to guys, and I feel like that's what the general consensus is on him. He just, guys want to play for him. He's a good guy. So.
And after that year that you played a little bit in Phoenix, San Antonio as well, you've managed to find your way to Austria. How did you manage to find your way there?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. After my NHL little thing, I wanted to come back, obviously, but my agent we kind of went through the guys that they signed and didn't really think I was kind of in their radar. So he said, "Oh, well, you want to try in Europe?" And as a guy that didn't really have a lot of numbers and a lot of NHL games and stuff, it was kind of had to start at the some level that's not Switzerland or Russia or something, right? So we found our way to Red Bull Salzburg, which was one of the big teams in Austria, and it's another eye opener where you go over there and you're in first year in Europe and you expect it to be like it is at home when it's not. And I remember my first game, they have especially in Austria, like they have these like almost soccer fans where they're beating drums all the time, and like you can hear it in the dressing rooms. And I'm just like, it's like this all game, and they're like, yeah, guys, like they're chanting, and so guys are like, yeah, it's like this all game. You can't hear anything on the ice, and I remember skating around and I couldn't hear anything other than chanting, and it was just a totally different experience for me. That it took me a while to get used to the loudness of the fans, but it was a lot of fun, and you got to see different countries, and like Hungary was in the league, and Slovenia, and like there's all these little teams in the league, and that you get to go see. So it was fun. A lot of little different training program in the Red Bull program, but it was an experience, and it worked out well. We won the championship there, and so it was a lot of experience there.
Like, did you learn any new languages there? Are you now fluent in another language because of going over to Europe? Obviously, we'll get into
No, not really. I wish I could, but like you pick up little things to get you by. So in Austria, like it's German, so you learn how to order food and whatever. But most people speak English, so.
Oh, that's good then.
Yeah, so it's tough your first year, but you kind of get used to the way things are overseas and in each country, and you get used to it. You get a little more tolerable and not so nervous when you're speaking to people.
And after 1 year in Austria, you managed to go back to the AHL and play in Binghamton and Peoria a little bit. So was that kind of, you felt like your stock was maybe built up a bit more?
You know what? I wanted to try one more year and see where it ended up for me. I had my taste of Europe and was kind of like, I wasn't done with the NHL. I kind of wanted to see if I could still go back. And this was my attempt to go back, and went to bingo and wasn't working out for me there. It was on the East Coast and I was a West Coast AHL player. So they didn't really know who I was. And I was playing fourth line forward, and basically they were telling me, go to the net and fight guys and do whatever you need to do. And I was kind of like, well, it's, I'm a D-man, right? So, so I got a trade. I got my agent get me to Peoria, which was much better, but I figured out that year that, the NHL wasn't there for me anymore. And I figured if I wasn't going to be in the NHL, I might as well go overseas and make some money, I guess.
Yeah. And now we kind of get into where you've kind of made your home, right? You start your second stint in Europe in Finland. Was that just kind of, how did that manage to get onto your radar to go to Finland and play there?
I think just I had I went to Austria and we won the championship. So I was kind of like, well, I've done the best I can do there. If I go back, then I'm going to stay there for a while. And I kind of wanted to go and see what the other leagues were like, and had a deal from Finland that I thought was pretty good for me, probably a little bit less money than I was making, but I wanted to go try, and it was just kind of another great year that I got fortunate enough, was in a great position that played lots, and a coach that really believed in me again, and we ended up winning that year as well. So, which was another crazy thing. We weren't doing so. It was a lockout year, so we weren't doing so well as of like January, and they fired our coach. But instead of him leaving and getting a new coach, they just kept him on for the rest of the year so that we would finish it out and whatever. And we ended up, once the lockout lifted, all those NHL guys that were playing in the other teams they left. So all the other teams got much worse, and we got basically the same. I think we had one NHL type player that left, and so we got much better, and we ended up just getting on this like great streak at the end of the year, and ended up winning the whole thing. And that team there hadn't won in like 35 years or something like that. So it was like this big, huge deal for the city, and really, it honestly, I still get people when I go to Pori, they come up to me and thank me for that year, and it was like 10 years ago already, and it's like a staple in my I guess my credibility here in Finland, that people remember me for that. So it was a big year, and ended up like our coach who was fired ended up winning the whole thing, which was just kind of a crazy thing as well.
Wow. And like, you win the Defenseman of the Year award there, you're an all-star. Just, how cool was that for you to be honored as like, holy crap, I'm the best defenseman in this league?
Yeah, it was great. Like it was nice to get some like recognition and play really well. I thought I was playing really well, and it really solidified my place in Europe. I think that's what every team in Europe wants, is like you have a year or two of you playing well and getting lots of points and everything, because it shows that you can play in Europe, and they feel safer to sign you, knowing that you have that stability. So I knew after that season I was going to be okay, and I actually ended up signing with Pori for a 2 or 3 year extension, but I had a KHL out, and they signed me knowing that most likely I wasn't going to come back.
Well, I'm going to go through some names that have also won that Defenseman of the Year award in Finland. Miro Heiskanen won it a few years after you. Esa Lindell, Sami Vatanen. Those are some big names right there. Lassi Kukkonen won it a couple times. Like those are some pretty big names. Brian Rafalski even won it one year. Just like to be named with those guys, that must be pretty neat, eh?
Yeah, it was great. I don't know. It was one of those things you just kind of chip away at it and just wanted to play well every night, and you had to play on a good team, right? And you can never do it yourself. Me, I'm not a highly skilled enough guy that I can do it all myself. So I was just fortunate to be a part of a big, good team and played a lot. So it really helped me that way. But yeah, it's a real honor to be part of those names for sure. I know Lassie really well. He's from here, so I played with him here in Oulu, and he's my good friend here in Oulu. So.
And after that, you managed to find your way to the KHL, which some people would say is the second best league in the world outside of the NHL. What was playing in the KHL like?
Yeah, it was wild. It was like the Wild West a little bit. I remember, getting this contract, and my wife and I we're looking at each other like we're really going to do this, right? And I said, well, let's try, right? So, yeah, you go over there, and it's a tough first month of training camp, usually in July, and then you go to Russia, and it's different there. Yeah, the league, the hockey is really, really good. The language barrier is really hard. Yeah, my mom and dad are both like our family's from Ukraine eventually, and my mom and dad grew up in Yorkton, Saskatchewan region, so they grew up learning Ukrainian, and like their parents spoke Ukrainian, and they went to school and they learned Ukrainian and everything. So Ukrainian and Russian is very similar. So I thought, I'd go to Russia and I could pick up a little bit, and it would be, and it was not so easy. You go to a restaurant, and eventually after my years there, I've picked up enough that I can order some food and stuff, but it was hard. It was really hard to manage there, but the hockey was great. We found success there again, but 2 years was enough for me.
Was there a culture shock moment there? A moment where you were kind of maybe sitting ordering food and you're like, holy crap.
Yeah, just, the guys there, you always have a translator there, and you're kind of shaking your head like, why is this happening? And they just say, this is Russia. This is just Russia. Like the driving there is just insane. Most guys have a driver just because, there's no insurance really. So, if you get in any kind of, like people, it's just insane that way. So, we didn't, we had a driver, and I drove a little bit, but I tried to avoid it. And it's just crazy. The whole culture is different. And it was a great experience really, but it was a little scary at the same time.
And after that, you find your way into Sweden for a year, playing for Modo. Is was one of the more well-known Swedish clubs, kind of over in North America, at least. What was playing in Sweden like? What was kind of like the differences that you noticed in these leagues?
Sweden was the hardest league I ever played in, for sure.
Wow.
It's just such a hard-paced game, and it's so defensively systemized, I guess you would say. It's like every team knows their system, and they play their system so well, and it's such a hard where they try to get you on the ice, and they try to get a few changes in and get you tired kind of thing, and it's just systematic, and it's hard. It's just a real hard league, and there's some good players that play there, and they have high skill. And I went there thinking that, I played in the KHL, this will be easy, and it wasn't so easy. And we were in a team that that year in Modo, they picked up a whole bunch of imports, basically. We had like Byron Ritchie and Maxime Lapierre and these guys, and picked up a whole bunch of imports, and I think some of the imports coming from North America thought that, this is going to be, compared to the AHL or the NHL, it's going to be a cakewalk, right? It's going to be a skill league, and we're going to score some goals and all that stuff. And it's a hard league. It's a work hard league. And we had a tough time that year. And it was kind of one of those dark years that we kind of just wish we were over. So.
And you managed to find your way back into Finland. What was it about coming back to Finland that drew you back after playing a season there a few years ago? Like, what was it that drew you back?
I had a couple not so great years, I think. And like my last year in Russia, I got traded. And then in Sweden, I didn't have the greatest year. So I think I was looking for like a crutch, almost like a stability league. And I knew that Finland was always going to be there for me after my 1 year. And, I could have probably waited around and maybe got another deal in Russia or something. But I had kids at the time, and I had 2 kids, and we wanted something that was more stable and just kind of, we can build our family around it. And in Finland here, it likes a lot like Canada, and they're very much so based on families. Basically, they live their lives around families, and the hockey is close by. Like playing in Russia, it was crazy. I got traded to Vladivostok, which is like about an hour and a half away from the North Korea border, and so our road trips were like 10-hour flight to Moscow, play 4 games in the week, play 4 in a week and a half, and then 13-hour flight home with an 8-hour time change.
Wow.
And you get back to Vladivostok, and it's like the next day in the afternoon, so they bus you straight to the rink for practice, and you're like, I haven't seen my family in like 2 weeks, and I'm exhausted from 4 games, and we just played a game and then had a 14-hour plane ride, and then you want to practice yet. So for us was just kind of, we wanted to get that family life and just have some normalcy, and Finland was always that for me, and I always found success here, and so yeah, we came back to a different team, but back to the league that I felt comfortable with.
And you've had clearly a lot of success in this league, but one thing I want to talk about first, representing Team Canada at the Spengler Cup in 2016, 2017, how cool was that?
Yeah, it was great. It was like one of my personal highlights, like it's kind of a weird thing, because Spengler Cup is one of those things that I don't know if people like, it's more of like a appreciation thing. They invite you to come as you're not even really part of like a world championship Team Canada. This is like the European Team Canada, So they try to invite guys that have played over here for a while, and obviously they want to win. So for me, just to be invited was just a big deal. I had to beg the team here to let me go. They didn't want to let me go. So, but yeah, they eventually, I actually talked to Lassie Kukkonen, who was our captain, and said, hey, like, the team's not letting me go. What do I do here, man? And he went and talked to them and said, hey, like, you guys need to do this and make this right. So they actually let me go. And it was awesome. It was great to fly to Switzerland with my family, and the wife got to experience that. My mom and dad flew from Saskatchewan over to Davos, Switzerland to watch, and yeah, it's cool to meet everybody. Like Sean Burke was our GM, and Dave King and all those guys, and yeah, we had a great team, and it was fun to play, and it's cool to play. I've never played in Switzerland before, so it was cool to play there and up in the mountains, and yeah, it was fun to win, and huge experience for me.
What was that like? What is that tournament like? Because I think we all see it here in North America. We see it on TV as like, oh, it's kind of going on with the World Juniors. What is it like? How big is this tournament out there?
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting tournament because it is big, but because they don't have like every team in all the leagues come, like they just have it per invite or whatever. It's kind of not as televised as it should be, I think, over here. But it's a big event for the players for sure. Every player wants to play in it. the teams there, they all want to win it, and all the teams there want to beat Team Canada. That's the biggest thing, is to beat Team Canada, because they know that they're the favorite, and everybody that plays on Team Canada wants to win the whole thing. They don't want to get second, right? So there's a lot of competitiveness there, because everybody wants to win, and at the same time there's a lot of scouts there and everybody wants, like, the big thing in Europe right now especially is everybody wants to play in Switzerland. So Switzerland or the KHL is the two big leagues right now, and so you go there and you have a good tournament, sometimes that turns into a job for you in Switzerland. So it was, as much as you want to take it all in and have the family and everything and do real well, you also want to kind of impress people and everything too. So for me, it was just great to go and experience the whole thing and get to know some of the guys there, and to say that I won the Spangler Cup is just another great thing to say. So.
Well, we've talked about, Spangler Cup, a Finnish league title, a couple of them, Austrian league, and, you go down the list, you've won a lot of different places. Is there one championship that stands out to you out of your career?
I don't know. That's a hard question. There's definitely some stories from all of them. I almost won an AHL Calder Cup one. We got to the final and lost. That one really stung with me. I was trying to win a cup in every league, and I never got the chance to do that. But yeah, like even in Tisdale when we won there, it was a big deal. Like I was named top defenseman of the tournament, which, like, for me was a huge thing. I had never had an award like that before. So yeah, that one was huge. And I think for me the Finnish one where we won here my first year in Finland, where people still recognize me from that team, it really cemented me here in Finland. Probably did the most for my career, longevity for sure, because I now in Finland here, like, I'm a older guy that everyone kind of recognizes, which is kind of strange, but I think that year did a lot for my credibility here in the league.
And, after you play a total of 5 years with Karpat in Finland, and then now you've decided to kind of make a change. This is kind of like current events. This is new news, kind of, that you've now found a new club to go to. Was it kind of a hard, almost like a breakup with your club there?
Yeah, it's like a family here. I've been here for so long, and we've had the same kind of guys that come through, and I've always told them here that I'll play as long as they want. They'll have me, and it comes to a point where they have some younger guys they want to kind of start playing, and you either have to decide, okay, do I want to be in and out of the lineup and do that kind of thing, or be out. And it came to a point where they just said, we're going to go this direction, and that's fine. That's hockey, and I've been fortunate to play a long time and play 5 years, and me and my family here, I have 3 kids, so it's just kind of a zoo to get in and out of here and everything. We're actually packing up to leave next week, so it's gonna be a fun week. But yeah, it's been great, and I love my 5 years here, but it has to come to an end sometime. And yeah, I was really thinking about retiring, honestly, and shutting the mill down, but I had a friend Lassie called me and said, hey, do you want to keep going? And I said, well, I'm throw me something that will stick, and we'll see. And he got me something here in Vasa. There's a kind of updated their rink there, and the coach really likes me there, I guess. So the wife wanted to do one more, and we're going to do one more. So.
Well, you mentioned you've had 3 kids there. Are they going to be Canadian, Finnish, part Canadian? Like, what if they were to play hockey? Where would they be considered from? That's a question we've all asked. Yeah.
Yeah, they're from Canada. Yeah, my first 2 kids were born in Canada.
Oh, okay.
And then my third one was born here, but he's got a Canadian passport, and basically the only thing that makes him not Canadian is he's on it that says born in Oulu, Finland. But yeah, you're Canadian as long as your parents are from Canada.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. A couple more things I want to ask you. One thing we like to ask all of our guests here on the podcast is, do you have any good trophy stories? So we've talked about a bunch of your championships. You've won a ton of them. Is there, one story about one trophy that you guys had? We've heard that the WHL championship, it actually floats. And, there's been a few others. Is there one that sticks out to you as a good trophy story?
Trophy story. Yeah. In Austria, this is maybe not a trophy story, but we had a coach. This is a good story, I think, but
okay.
We had a coach, his name is Pierre Paget. He coached in the NHL a long time.
Okay.
And he was a little bit losing it by the end of my time there. And he really thought someone was going to kill him. Basically, that's what his mental state was. And so we won in on the road in Game 7 in double overtime. And we were celebrating on the ice with the cup and everything. And he left. He had two bodyguards at the game, and they escorted him out of the building. And so we have the cup, and we're celebrating. I don't know how long we were at the rink for, like an hour or two or whatever. And then we ended up on the bus, and we're still celebrating. He's gone, and we ended up meeting him like an hour out of the town, picked him up, and he finally starts picking up the cup in the bus and celebrating with the cup. And it was just really strange thing, but. Yeah, that's my cup story, I guess.
That's so odd. You still have no idea where he was?
No, he was so scared that like someone was gonna like jump him or whatever that he left the building. And there's a lot of weird things that happen in Austria that it was like we had one game in VLAC that we were beating them like 8-1 or whatever, and people started throwing things on the ice.
Oh.
And so their GM came out, and like this isn't like a strange thing that fans throw things on the ice in Austria. Like it happens a lot actually. And the GM came out and was like waving the white flag, and this is a regular season game. And so we ended up winning the game. We were in the dressing room, and they came and said, "Hey, you guys can't leave. There's like a bunch of fans outside, and they want to jump you guys or whatever." So we had to wait in the dressing room for like 2 hours, I think, after the game for the police to come. And the police had they had to like quarantine, like get the gates and everything set up so that like, and they had these like guard dogs and everything so that we could get to the bus.
What?
So we walked out of the dressing room, and there was just like mob of like fans everywhere, and like these police guys with the big riot shields, and they were escorting us out of the building.
Wow.
Yeah, so Austria was crazy. Like we had one game was we had a playoff game that we forfeited.
What?
We were playing Slovenia, and we played one game there, and our Pierre Paget was our coach, who's like, I still respect him, and I think he's a nice guy, but he was just crazy. And he was getting like spit at from the fans and stuff, and we were getting fruit bombed on us and like water bottles and stuff. And so the next game we were playing there, we were like having a pregame meal and everything. And he walks into the restaurant, and he's like, "Hey, get on the bus, boys. We're not playing tonight." We're like, "Okay, like what's going on here?" He's like, "I forfeited the game. It's a playoff game."
What?
And we're like, "Okay." And he's like, it wasn't safe. It wasn't safe for us to be out there. So we're just going to take our chances at home. I'm like, if we don't win, like if we didn't win at home the next game, then we're going back there to play,
Oh, wow.
And we would have had to play that game. So we ended up winning the next game at home to keep going. But it was like just an insane thing that, he forfeit a playoff game because he's scared that the fans are going to get him.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting experience. My first year in Europe.
One other thing I wanted to ask about is, being part of that Tisdale Trojans Air Canada Cup team. If you notice, probably the Trojans also made the TELUS Cup just a couple of years ago in Thunder Bay. Did you pay any attention to that team in that tournament at all, knowing that, you guys kind of have that similarity of both you guys making the TELUS Cup?
I did definitely was watching. I know I would kind of pay attention every year to see how the Trojans are doing, and then I did see that they kind of got a little bit of news that they went to the TELUS Cup, and I saw that they didn't win the whole thing, but that's a great achievement to get that far, and I'm sure that the Saskatchewan Mid AAA Hockey League is harder than ever now, and I know kids now have major talent than we used to have. It was more will than talent than back in the day. So it's a huge accomplishment, I think, and I think one day the Trojans will be back up at the TELUS Cup. I think it's still called TELUS Cup, right? Yes,
it is still called the TELUS Cup now. Yeah. So, and one last thing, do you have any other stories that you want to tell? We're letting you get this out. If you've got any other cool stories that you think listeners will enjoy.
If I have any really cool stories, I have a lot of stories that I don't tell because I'm still playing.
That's fair. I get that.
Yeah, I have a lot of Russia stories that I probably can tell after I'm done playing. But
okay.
Yeah, seeing as I'm still in Europe, I don't really want to mess with those yet. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. Paul Kariya really made me look like a fool one time. We were playing St. Louis, and Paul Kariya went in the corner and probably did about 3 stop and goes and went and scored on me, and then I got sent down the next day. So I can thank Paul for that.
Have you ever said that to Paul?
Oh no, he wouldn't know who I was. But yeah, it's funny because I've played in so many different places that I've met like so many different characters, and then through social media and everything, you kind of see these guys like Brian Whitney and Paul Bissonnette. They have that Spit and Chicklets now, and I play with both of those guys. And like my first NHL assist, my first NHL point was I shot it off Paul Bissonnette's skate, and he scored against Carey Price, and that was his first NHL goal.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then, yeah, so it was kind of an interesting thing. And then my first NHL goal, we were playing in St. Louis, I think. And so I shot the puck, and it went in, and it was, celebrating everything. And after the period, Tipper and like the GM and everyone comes up and shakes your hand, and you got the hockey night and cans of towel and everything, and you're like, it's a big thing, right?
Yeah.
He gave me the puck and everything, and then Radim Rabada comes up to me and says, "Hey, like, I tipped it, but like, I'm not going to say anything, okay?" I'm just like, "Oh, thanks, man. Like, appreciate that." But in the NHL, they video review every goal.
Yeah.
So after the second period, during the second period, you can hear a goal change, and after the first goal scored by Radim Rabada, assisted by Shaun, I was just like, oh no, So second intermission comes around, and everybody basically who shook my hand and said, "Hey, congrats on your first NHL goal," came back and said, "Hey, I gotta take it back, sorry," So it was kind of I know what it feels like to score a goal, but I'd never scored a goal.
That's a weird feeling, hey?
Yeah, well, I'm happy just to have my cup of coffee there. I was happy just to get the assist, so I was good that way either way.
Shaun, man, we're running out of time here. I really appreciate you coming on, hanging out, talking to me, and this was a lot of fun to bring you on the podcast. I really do appreciate you taking some time. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
We'll have to bring you on. We'll have to bring you on again, and when you're retired, so you can tell us some more stories.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds good. I got a good plan.
Okay.
All right.